bro?
Did you look up?
Well, I'm here.
Hi. My name is Timmy.
Surprise shark attack. Oh, no.
You got the slow-mo going. The connection was so bad, it helped you out.
Really? All
I
right.
can smell you through the freaking computer.
I'll keep it professional.
Yes.
I'll keep it professional for 0.2 seconds. This is the first podcast from the first note. Yeah.
Can we copyright that first note?
From the first note. Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to get it tattooed on my ribcage.
I'm going to get it
under that weird mole.
I'm going to get it tattooed on my gooch.
Mm. What was I going to say?
Welcome to our podcast stream type thing.
Right.
We're aspiring musicians.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. I was going to say my guest, but I don't want you to be my guest. I want you to be my mi amigo, mi constant. I'll have other people on and stuff and call it from the first note. Anybody that wants to view the other ones. But yeah, Cameron here. This is Cameron.
Rusty.
I don't know if you want me to give you
Shackleford.
Yeah. Cam.
Who is this?
My name is Daniel. Smelly Daniel. Wait, that's right there. So our podcast, we're gonna talk about being musicians.
Guess what I play?
You gotta scoot out of the way a little bit. Well, I see a guitar over there too. I see a guitar case.
They have to guess from my name. Guess what I play?
You can play all kinds of stuff with a groove.
Yeah.
Tell the listeners.
Play the harpsichord.
When did you start playing that instrument that they have to guess?
When did I start playing the instrument that they have to guess? Well,
it's the drums.
Let me think back. Don't tell them. Jesus Christ, bro.
Excuse me.
Anyway, well, I guess since we're giving away all our secrets now, we might as well mention that you are the guitarist / singer / songwriter of Vibrant Swings, our band, two-piece.
Two-piece
needed. And I am the drummer / pianist / songwriter also of Vibrant Swings.
Ooh.
Our band, we're so cool. But anyway, I guess with that out of the way, as far as the drums, which is my main instrument, hence the name over here, Groove Magoo, right there, somewhere in there. Well, truthfully, it wasn't the first instrument I picked up. The first instrument I ever touched, which I feel
Skin
like
flute.
is pretty. Say what?
Skin flute.
Skin. That came later. That actually wasn't the first one. That came right about midnight on my 13th birthday.
Oh yeah, it
came. It did. This is not. We can't put this on the internet. This is bad.
Is there a way to get negative viewers other than zero?
We're not mature enough for this.
You know what's sad is that I'll let everyone that views this know that this is our second take. Last week we had a really good 2-hour talk, as it was going to be our first podcast, and it didn't record. So here our dumbasses are. Take 2. It's completely unprofessional this time around.
Yeah, we're
all right.
We are angry.
We know one another, and we're stupid, and we're angry. So
yes,
yeah.
And I'm from Georgia. Go Dogs! I got the matching mug too.
Got that dog in me.
I got that dog in me. Meow.
You played drums for how long, and who are your influences?
Okay, back on topic. Backtracking. First instrument I ever got was a keyboard, a little toy keyboard from like Dollar General or something. Piano was the first thing I touched, which I feel is pretty common for most musicians. Piano is pretty much the gateway drug into musicianship. And I really liked the piano. I really liked the idea of being able to make my own sounds and stuff. Not really knowing what I was doing with my fingers in that context, purely a musical piano context. Let me reiterate. Kind of experimented around. I asked for a guitar one Christmas when I was like still in elementary school, and my grandparents, God bless them, they got me a little junior acoustic guitar.
Hell yeah!
I think that the brand was Austin. It was an Austin brand junior guitar. And I tried to pretend to play that. It's harder to pretend to play guitar because it just doesn't work as simple. I would sit there just strumming the strings randomly, pretending I was playing Nickelback and Creed. It didn't really, in my mind, I was doing it.
It's okay. Taylor Swift does that live. So Taylor Swift does that live.
We can't name names.
Every fucking night.
You were putting a we're on the hit list now, bro. You cannot anger the Swifties. You can't do that. We're gonna have to edit that out so we don't get crucified.
I'll get crucified in spite of it.
Wonderful lady. She's great. But yeah. Anyway, the guitar, kind of messing around with the piano and the guitar, and then what kind of pulled me towards the drums was my dad. He always played drums for the church. He was a drummer before.
I didn't know that.
I thought I told you that. No. My dad, he was the drummer for church that we were going to. And then the next church that we went to, which was the last one that I was going to, that I ended up playing drums for, he played there for a little while too. And, it kind of kept that in the back of my mind. And then listening to stuff, particularly, and a lot of drummers are going to hate me for saying this because this is an unpopular opinion. Tommy Lee and Motley Crue, which was my dad's favorite band. I say that like he's still alive. It is his favorite band. Motley Crue, Tommy Lee, technically I want to say was my very first influence that pulled me towards the drums because I started making ghetto drum sets in my room, books, pillows. We had a bunk bed. I shared a room with my little brother. The bunk bed had a metal frame. So I literally used the frame of the bottom bunk as a ride cymbal. It's pretty legit. And I would just stomp my foot on the ground to be the kick. And
as we spoke about last time, that's what Dave Grohl said he did in his book. I think a lot of drummers probably do that because obviously, first and foremost, drumming is cool. Especially when the drums are badass in the song, you want to air drum it. But when you actually think about becoming a drummer, it's not one of those that you just get a set overnight, man. That's one of those expensive instruments. A guitar, you can get a starter and an amp, everything you need for like $120, whereas a drum set, you're probably looking at least like $500 to $1,000 just for like a somewhat decent one. But Dave Grohl not only said that in his Storytellers book or whatever. Another thing I mentioned last time when we spoke about this in the podcast that did get recorded was that he said he played drums with his teeth, and I did that too. And then you said you did that as well. So it's not just like I actually keep my mouth closed and it's been like a nervous tick, but not when I'm nervous, but just when I have a song stuck in my head, and instead of humming it for some reason, I'm just like clacking my teeth together to the beat
to make the beat. I thought I was the only human being on planet Earth that did it, and I was ashamed for it. But when you my dad, he told me he did that too, and I was like, okay, so me and my dad, it's in our genes. We're just insane. But then you told me that you did that too, and I was like, falling in love all over again.
Oh,
We just got
that's
this.
sweet.
We're so close.
But
Yeah, it's a really weird thing though. You know,
I
the
think a
teeth
lot of
thing.
musicians have a lot of weird ticks. Like I can't remember where I was. I think I was at school and they were showing us some like horrible documentary of like Beethoven, and it was like really horribly acted, and it was like a C-rated movie. The guy was walking around. Is it Beethoven, like the classical composer that was deaf
Yeah,
or something like
which
that?
they recently found out
So he was
that
like
it
walking
was
around.
heavy metals that caused him to lose his senses like hearing. So basically, Beethoven was heavy metal before anybody.
Yeah, take that,
Beethoven
Dio.
was
You ain't
metal.
shit. Yeah, he was like walking. It's just a rainbow in the dark. Do, 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 do. Heavy metal piano. Uh, yeah, in the movie, he was like walking around, pacing, and like basically like becoming a spaz just because he had music in his head. And I was like, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I write music not when I'm setting down. I write music. I could set my guitar down and be like, I need to write something to that, and it can be plugged in and everything. I can go start sweeping, cleaning the house, and I'm like, there it is. I got the riff, and go sit back down. I can immediately and just start hearing it. And sometimes, you know, when the wife is sitting there, we're like, hey, we got to pay these bills and blah blah blah. I'm just sitting there going, and she's facing me this way. I'm just like looking at the ground. It's, God, what is on your mind? I'm sitting there going, I just look at it.
Writing freaking prog metal ballad about paying the bills.
I've got nothing but zeros and Meshuggah in my brain right now. It's all bleed. The riff by Meshuggah is in my brain. And
Zeros.
It's just all zeros.
The freaking tablature. That's funny.
Yeah, my brain is in the matrix right now, zeros and bends, and it's all 8-string. But yeah,
I had to stop that habit though, because it's technically bad for your teeth. And I had already dealt with some bruxism a couple of years back, which is like when you grind your teeth in your sleep. So I had to wear like a mouth guard for a little while. That trained me not to do it, so I don't have to wear it anymore. I don't do that anymore, from what I can tell. But I try not to do that little, tick anymore, because it's really not good for your teeth. But I still get the urge to.
How do you replace that? Flick your bean?
To what?
Said, what do you do? Replace it with flicking your bean?
Yeah, probably.
That chair sticky. God, dude, we're gonna get canceled before it even starts. So influence. You just said Tommy Lee, didn't you? So
yeah, he was the one that kind of Tommy Lee and Motley Crue kind of got me into it. It was just the heavy grooves, the sound of his drums and playing, and just the flair that he had. It's just like, I want to do that, I want to try that.
Yeah, Tommy's drumming, as far as I've ever, I grew up around a really good drummer, so a little bit about my background, about it too. So I started off being a diehard like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones fan. Picked up a guitar, learned all their songs in like a week.
Korn, everyone.
Twist. I love those guys. I still do. They still make good music. I like Limp Bizkit still. I don't care what anybody says. I listen to everything.
Dude, I don't know, man. It's kind of like the whole Nickelback thing. Like, they're not the greatest thing ever, but it's like, it just became popular opinion to just unnecessarily hate, just absolutely shit on certain groups like Limp Bizkit and Nickelback.
Well, I was there.
I mean, it was.
You're a whole decade younger than me, if anybody wants to know that. I'm an old fart. I was born in '86, and I remember, I grew up.
You are 10 years older
in the '90s. Yeah,
exactly.
So I was there to see the beginning of Limp Bizkit, and then, man, it just the music world was great in the 90s, every bit of the 90s, even
Peak,
99 and 2000.
fucking peak.
And the way that it was advertised and basically shoved down our throats. But the thing is, just like any popular music, they would play the shit out of said like 4 or 5 bands, and you kind of got rubbed off on those. And it's like, all right, with like Limp Bizkit, TRL in the late 90s was the thing. It was like shit. I don't know if you remember it. It's like they had anything from literally from Eminem to Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, and then the next day they might have Korn on there, Limp Bizkit,
It's Britney, bitch.
maybe, yeah, Britney. But they would have music videos, and they would have people vote. They'd call in and vote what music videos need to be on the top 10 of the week or the day or whatever, and it would be legit.
Old school MTV.
Yeah, that's in the late 90s still. That was
Yeah,
like
yeah. MTV. I remember even when I was younger, like in the early 2000s, MTV was still somewhat MTV, and then
right.
Well, the Kardashians took over.
I don't even. I know what they sound like because of like little clips, but I don't know anything about the Kardashians. And I'm gonna keep it that way too. And then they got big old butts. They got big old cabooses.
Yeah,
I think we all know that. But
yes,
yeah, TRL was like kind of the last hurrah of that. But they, Limp Bizkit, Korn, they shoved it down everybody's throats too much. Stained. Stain didn't need that much of a push. The guy's got like no range on the vocals, depressing.
yeah,
kind of shitty music.
Kind of like, yeah, they've got like those 1 or 2 good songs, and then it's the same way with bands like Three Doors Down. Like you got 1 or 2 good songs.
Those are the worst.
You got 1 or 2 good ones, and then like every other song is not only just bad bass line, but they're all the same. So they're all the same bad song beyond those 1 or 2 good ones that they have,
Right.
So it's so I understand that, but I mean,
a topic that you and I didn't discuss on that first go around that I want to bring up with everybody when I interview them when they're musicians. I always think it's funny is like, what can you tell me like the wildest, craziest time that you ever met with somebody? Because when you form a band, you have to meet strangers.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, and of course, 99% of the time for us, it's males. I'd love to meet a female musician as a bassist or a singer. And
sure, you would. And,
I'm a married man. I'm happy. But I've only met dudes, and yeah,
that's a good transition.
Yeah,
I'm a married man. I've only met dudes.
That's pretty. You funny. Can go out there and sleep around. It's got to be guys. But I could tell you like countless stories of tons of musicians, and it's like it almost seems like it's a go-to. Like every time you meet one, it's going to be. It's not. You don't just sit down and make music. It's always some wild shit pops off. I don't know what it is with our genre of music. The people that go with it, it's never smooth transition. When I met you, it was smooth, and it's been smooth ever since. You were my constant. You are my drummer. I'm moving to Spain. I will always use you as a drummer. If anything were to happen, and the music that we make is pulling up, and we have to tour, you'll be my drummer. But there's always going to be these fucking nut bars that we have to deal with that are the other musicians. I was going to see if you remembered. I can't remember where we got a hold of this guy, but he said that he was like a metal guitarist, and we get over there, and at the time you're probably 22, I'm probably 32, maybe a little younger. Maybe you're 20, I'm 30. And this guy is probably 40, and he still lives with his mom and dad. He's got his hair slicked back, all wet.
Yeah,
he's got eyeline on.
I remember that.
And he said
Cannibal Corpse,
Yeah,
bro.
and he was playing like probably a BC Rich guitar, and it not that he sucked, but it was just the way he was just like, I can't get a ride to gigs. I can't leave my house because I have this physical ailment. And we're just like, oh, okay. And just being nice, but like in our heads, we're like, okay, well, it's time to go. This is wasted our
Yeah,
time.
because he
But
said he had a work injury,
yeah,
and he had like MMA shit in his garage, and like
yeah,
they were like
yeah,
he did practiced MMA or something. He he
yeah,
was just one of those cliche like deadbeats with no
yeah,
direction.
yeah. The dude was probably like 40 years old, and he was really out of shape. He looked like a blob of shit. And he looked like he just went in the Hot Topic. He said, give me anything that's black that doesn't go well with the way I look.
Right.
And before we left, he tried to show us how to box. I had boxed before, and he was just like throwing these like little punk ass weak punches on this boxing bag. I was just like, what are we doing here? And that's probably one of the more innocent run-ins I've had with just meeting random musicians.
And
So
well, see, you're from the OG. Well, not only are you from West Virginia, enough said, but you're also from the OG days of where musicians used to get together and like just do hella drugs and just be crazy and shit like that.
yeah, it's what broke up all the good bands. So,
The 90s and early
yeah,
2000s, you were a part of that whole thing.
yeah,
But and then the
yeah.
guy
Let's see.
when you moved,
I was never in a what?
say what?
I was never in
What?
a band in the '90s. I started, but I was in a band in like 2002. But shit, we were all strung out and doped up kids. And, you know, not a single one of us had parents around. I had to sit there like I didn't really start thinking about that until me and my wife had our son, and we're sitting there talking about because you don't really start thinking about your parents and being a parent till you have a kid, and you're just like, holy shit, man, they really just let us loose. Because when
Right.
I was like 13 years old, I started smoking, drinking, doing drugs and stuff, whatever. But when we were like 16, all of us were 16. I think one guy, man, like one of my best friends, was 17. There was 5 of us, and we would skip school more so. We would go to school each day, and on the weekends we'd all meet up, and we would write and rehearse, and it was a blast. And it gave me confidence that I needed because I knew I wanted to do music. I had left sports behind. I was all about that, and I was partying too much. But yeah, man, like we could go to any one of our houses to write or rehearse. There were no parents. It just looked like teenagers lived there. And it was like that all day, almost all night. Like the parents would work and they'd go straight to the bars in my podunk hometown, man.
West
And yeah, man.
Virginia.
They might come home at 3 in the morning and be like, did you drink or did you eat anything? Can I fix you something? It's like, yeah, I've ate Pop Tarts and pills. Pop
You don't
Tarts and
need it.
pills,
What else
mom.
do you need, bro?
Yeah.
Don't be a pussy.
You hungry? Go I'll kill you a squirrel.
That's funny.
But yeah. Uh, what tore us up though? Our little band was that we were on that the beginnings of or our beginning. We had sat there and like written about 10 to 12 songs, and this is like you learn from a young age the stupid stuff that you go through. Like it's a huge thing that most of these bands have gotten famous around 17 or 18 years old and stayed famous and made the music that they've done. Because when we did it, man, we were like 16, 17. By the time we went to a studio, we get in there and we almost break up in the studio because we're arguing over what 3 songs we're going to do because we can only afford to record 3 songs, why we're going to record them. And then one of the artists, too, was a dramatic fucking asshole anyway, pretty much quit after he recorded his parts because his lyrics didn't get in one of the songs, but he'd written the first portion of the lyrics, and he wanted me to sing some new ones that didn't make any sense. So we were all arguing and talking about that, and still to this day, I'm really upset that we didn't throw one or two songs out of this demo. We had made a conscious decision to record the 3 songs that meet that 3 to 4 minute mark, so it could be played on the radio and be, it was like a hard song, a medium song, or like, goes from acoustic to electric, and then just a song with 2 guitars and then me singing, and it was like depressing as shit. It was like something in the way on it. Yeah, man, it was
freaking extreme.
I hated it, but yeah, we get to our first gig. The same guy pissed off about the lyrics quits right before we get on stage. We had to sucker him in to play the gig, and then we were over. A whole year, a physical year of really writing and honing in on our talents and all that stuff, just because I didn't get to this part, because emo was coming out. And 2 out of the 5 of us wanted to do emo, and I was not one of them. I was really against it. I hated it. I hated the look. I hated the sound. And these 2 guys wanted me to sing like that. I was like, dude, I'm not singing like that. It sounds stupid.
Yeah, so, emo punk took over the early 2000s. It was,
yeah.
It just didn't. Emo just was. It's just not authentic. It just doesn't really feel authentic. It's like a bunch of, for the most part, upper middle class kids, their parents paying them their way through college, just singing about stupid crap. Like, I mean, some of the stuff is good. Like some good songs, some good music has come out of it. And Blink-182, Enema of the State, that album. My dad had that album, and I forgot to mention that Travis Barker was one of my biggest influences when I first started playing drums. Enema of the State was the go-to album for me when I first started learning how to play different styles and stuff, and went from Tommy Lee to Travis Barker to Neil Peart. That was pretty much where I kind of hit that curve of progression just really quick, because I was learning Neil Peart and Rush and playing that stuff. Which between it started with the ghetto drum set, and then we got a Wii and had Rock Band for the Wii. So technically, the Rock Band drum set was the first electronic drum set that I played. And playing that game and playing the songs and everything just kind of reaffirmed my love for the drums. And then that's when I eventually asked for a drum set for Christmas one year. And I've said this before, I'm very thankful to my parents for really, supporting, because we've always been like lower middle class, and in some situations, if even that, throughout life. And it was like, even through all of that, like they worked their asses off to just support us, give us what we, tried their best to make us happy, and they invested in that drum set. And I got it for Christmas, General Percussion starter drum set that I've still got in that closet back there. I've had it for 15 years now. It's and that's just where it took off.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but the part where we didn't have anywhere for me to play it, I had to put it in my room, and they were willing to let me hash out on the drums in the house, in my room. They were willing to put up with that until we eventually moved into a space where we had a garage, and I could put it out there. But even then, you still got a lot of noise in the house. I still have to put up with that. So shout out to my parents. Very thankful for that, for them being as supportive as they were.
Yeah, they let us jam over there. So thanks, Mandy. I'm happy.
Yeah, we did jam over there. Our first time jamming was at the church. That's where we the safety meet to make sure we weren't trying to kill each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell the viewers about our first time. I had you describe it, but the first time, but it didn't get recorded. But it was we're from the Middle Georgia area. Macon has
478 represent.
I had a 478 number once. Macon, Georgia has a guitar center, and where musicians go to play $1,000 valuable instruments for about 30 minutes and annoy people and not, well, we don't buy anything, walk out.
Right.
They got my money though. I bought quite a bit of stuff off of them. You have to go there to test out music. That's if you're a listener of pop music, a majority of shit won't be bought there. Real musicians, people that play their instruments, even record. Well, it actually has to start there because you either go to like websites like Sweetwater and know what you're getting, or you go to places like Guitar Center where they have a section that's like guitars and drums and bass guitars, stringed instruments. On the other side, they have like DJ turntable shit, and then they actually have things set up to where you can see what a home studio is like. And if you're like me, you contact somebody that works there and has a degree on teaching you how to use software to record, and that's what I did. So if you're ever looking into that type of stuff, there you go. Guitar Centers have some things like that. Maybe Sam Ash, but yeah, they have everything from like MIDI keyboards where you can make beats off of that, that and software programs and everything. What was I talking about?
Guitar Center's
talking about gear.
Talking about when we met.
Yes,
Guitar Center was a part of that story. Yeah.
Yeah, the best thing if you're going to start a band, you can always go to like your music scene. You can go watch, that's supportive anyway, to go see your music scene and support some local bands and get to know some of the bands and tell them that what you're going for, what music you like to play, instruments you play, and they can kind of hook you up. But
I'm a SoundCloud rapper. Lil Gritty, look me up.
Little Gritty. I'm sure there's already somebody like
Nubby
that.
Grits.
And now a little Grit. I saw there's a community board in every Guitar Center that will be where you post like, hey, I am a drummer, I'm a guitarist looking for other musicians looking for a
legit
band.
Flyers and advertisements and shit.
Right.
For more pretext with the humor.
Man, this is probably what I moved to Georgia in 2014, and I guarantee I moved there in December, so that's probably like January of 2015. Or
I graduated high school in 2015.
You old fart. I met this guy, and he didn't have a beard. He looked like a little child. You immediately blew me away, though, man.
Well, what did it say on you didn't even tell about the part about the
yeah. That's what I was trying to get to. Everybody has legit flyers. I've put up a flyer or two in my lifetime, but I've just wrote it out on like a legit piece of paper. This guy used a napkin. It was just scribbled on there. And drummer.
Well, it was receipt paper.
You said drummer.
Receipt paper from the receipt paper from the cash register from the front of the store. Was
it receipt paper?
Yeah, it was receipt paper from the. Yeah.
I remember it said at the end though, you won't regret it. And I was like, ha, I like it. He's cocky. I'll give him a shot. And I called you up. We spoke. I had done this before, like talk to people. So, about being in a band. So I probably talked about influences, wanted to know your influences. And then of course, me being a diehard Rush fan, I'm like, you better say Neil. I think you did. Or I probably asked you if you like Rush. You're like, oh, yeah. But you set it up to where we met at that church, and you and I jammed at that church probably like 4 or 5 times, which is funny because here I am. I'm going to your church, and I've got my guitar out in the car, and the session's over. The church is over, or whatever, and the pastor or whatever you call the guy at the church, he's just like, hey, you guys are gonna jam, okay? So here I bust out my 8-string, and we're playing like all this like heavy metal stuff. I think
devil
we jammed
music,
rattlesnake music, man, at this church
in the sanctuary.
Yeah, we used that quite a few times. I think it even streamed us jamming once there live on Facebook, which is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's just people don't understand what you have to go through to get a band going.
And shout out to Pastor Jeff for allowing us to do that.
There you go. Yeah, and he was really cool about it. He even came through like a couple times, like, "Hey, it sounds good." It's like, "You really like it?" It's pretty heavy.
That's funny.
Sounds like a
We
gargoyles
had
theme.
and the bassist for the church, Goody, um, which I got to give a shout out to him because he was it. I've never had any formal music training, but if I've had anything close to it, like coaching wise, Goody
Mhm.
was definitely the guy because he was a drummer and then he gave up the drums to play bass. Um, and he had a whole story for it. Like he was overseas
Yeah.
and he met a kid who couldn't afford a drum set or something like that, and he donated his drum set to this kid like somewhere overseas, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm tired of the drums anyway. I want to play bass." And I was like, "Someday I'm going to do that.
Mhm.
I'm going to donate. Like I'm going to find a kid who dreams of doing something like that, and
That's
I'm
cool.
gonna help him out." I'm like, Goody was a good
That's
guy.
awesome, yeah.
Goody most certainly was good. And yeah, remember he played bass. He jammed with us a little
Uh,
bit
that's
on the
an
bass.
idea I can do with my guitars when we finally get settled in Spain. I have, like, 4 that are cracked, but they still play, and, people are gonna be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna pay that much for." They're not worth that much, but they're good guitars to learn. Maybe I'll just donate them. I'll give them away to people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's awesome. What and you touched on a topic that I wanna touch on. I forgot that you and I are, uh, self-taught, basically. We're organic learners, like, what's that like for a drummer? You just
Purely
play by
by ear.
ear? Yeah, you just learn the beats by ear, maybe you watch some YouTube videos of people playing it to kinda get the gist of where their placements are at?
It's kind of it's always been kind of hard to put into words, which is why it's
Alright,
difficult for people who play by ear to teach it, which I've self-taught in some music theory just to have like a basic understanding of like notation and terminology and stuff.
right,
Which and that did help me kind of get better at the piano. I will say that, but I don't know, man. It's just like there was something, just something in my soul that was just in love with the rhythm, the groove, the intricacy, just music. Just I fell in love with it and became passionate about it as a young age. And I think it was a combination of the like broad spectrum of albums and musical types my dad had because
right.
of the old school like mail in CD subscription service he had. You would like put your favorite
Yeah,
bands and genres on the subscription, and then they will yeah,
I remember
anytime
it.
a new album
Yeah,
came out from anybody in those categories, they would send it to you. So he had a huge like broad scope of music, which is
mhm,
part of the foundation of like my palette when I was younger. That's where I started, just a broad range of country, rock, hip hop, all of that, and video game music. And people don't talk about that a lot. Is video game music probably played the biggest part in me falling in love with music because it's
mhm,
solely about the music. It's solely about the music. And they're telling a story and setting a stage with music. And there's people who make video game music are some of the most brilliant composers, like modern day. It's beautiful. But
yeah,
anyway, as far as like playing the drums by ear, it's you kind of learn, you know, just naturally you pick up rhythm. You kind of you just understand it organically. You just understand the intimacies of the rhythm and the groove with the music and how it affects the rest of it. And it's funny you brought up like watching videos and stuff. We didn't have internet in my household until I was like eighth grade, maybe in high school. So I didn't even grow,
yeah,
even in my with the generation I grew up in. I didn't grow up in my like young years with the internet, so I couldn't do stuff like that.
right,
I just had a really good, I've got really good visualization in my mind of things, and I
right,
always just was able to, I could hear the sound and just logically visualize what they were doing in my mind to make that sound, and then I would just go do it. And obviously, the only thing you have to do then is just coordinate, train your muscles and limbs to coordinate to be able to play that pattern. But that's
Right.
pretty much where it all started. I would hear it, I'd visualize what are they doing to make those noises, and then I would translate that through my own hands and feet. And at that point, it's just getting the hands and feet trained to do that. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's hard to
I
explain, but
really
that's pretty
liked,
much it.
I really liked, I really do like writing music with you because I've been in a room with people that are not as talented as me, or they've been more talented, and they have music
Ditto.
theory under their belt. And say they're playing a stringed instrument, and I present them uh, a riff. I usually, when I say I've written a song, I want you to check it out. I want you to see if you like it. I'll play a couple bars of the verse. If there's a pre-chorus, I'll play a second of that, and then I'll play a chorus. I do that always: verse, pre-chorus, chorus, or just
Right.
verse, chorus, whatever, to kind of give them the gist of what I've got, what you want to do with it, whatever. And they'll always ask things like, "Is that in what theory is? What is in that? Is that in theory? What root are you? What's the keynote?" I'm just like, I don't fucking know. I've played for 25 years, and and then they'll just be like, "Oh, okay." And I'll give you this, like our song "Chipped Away." You know that my hand on the guitar it's I'm really only playing like 4 or 5 notes, for instance, and it's 4/4. When I presented that to people before, they can't play it. It's very simple. It's just got that
Somewhat,
genty.
yeah, non-conventional.
Yeah, and I've written stuff like that since I was a teenager. I've always liked stuff like that. And some of the guys that I've been in bands with before that can, play other people's music and do laps around me, like they can play. I was in a band like that first band I was talking about. Those guys could play any Pantera song, which I can play a lot of them too, but they can play an entire album from start to finish, and Megadeth, Megadeth albums and stuff. And Marty Friedman and Dave Mustaine, those unreal musicians, guitarists,
Mhm.
and they could sit there and play those note for note. But when it comes time to writing music, they couldn't get past like System of a Down type riffs. You know what I mean? It was really weird. And my uncle is like that too. The guy that got me into Rush, he didn't really get me in the Dream Theater, but in order to jam with him with his ginormous drum set to get my
Yeah.
chops, I had to learn Pantera and Rush, and I was more than willing because I love those bands. They're like still some of my favorite bands. Rush will always be my favorite band, but yeah, but I wanted him to be in a band with me because this dude's amazing. Everybody that any musician that I ever knew that when I lived in West Virginia, I was like, you got to come over and check out my uncle, play some drums, man. And we would play Pantera, Rush, Dream Theater. My dad is an amazing guitarist, and Dream Theater's been around since the like kind of early-ish 80s. And my dad came over and played some really technical stuff with my uncle, Dream Theater. They were both just playing it note for note. But when I present something that sounded like fucking Rob Zombie, some easy riff, dun, 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 something that I had written, for instance, it didn't sound like that, but I'm just saying like the level of how easy it was. It was just beginner. Like let's check this riff out first. Can you write to that? They couldn't do it. I've known too many musicians that just cannot play along to that stuff. They can't write their own music. I don't understand it.
I think it's cool that you touched on that because I've always kind of a long time ago I'd kind of come to the realization that there are people who play music and then there are people who make music. Like there are musicians and then there are musical artists.
Right.
And you can be both. Like you can be a musician and musical artist, because music, when you say musicianship, I usually just picture, okay, they play an instrument, they can play an instrument, they have musical instrumentation skill. Musical artist innately means that you create your own music, and you can be a musician, like instrumental musician who creates music, which, I mean, generally that's how it always plays out, because it's kind of hard to be a musical artist and not also be a musician. But there are musicians who are not musical artists, and it's
Yeah.
and that's kind of where part of, like, that's one of the, like, ulterior themes of the ear by natural by ear musicianship versus theory musicianship, because there's like elitism with musical theory. Musical theory is important, don't get me wrong, but to me it only serves two purposes. Musical theory is for notating and writing down music. Musical
Right.
theory allows you to notate your music and put your ideas on paper. That number two, you can then convey through a standard it's a standardization of notation. Bars. Um,
Mhm.
Call me Slim Shady. But anyway, let me stay on topic. So it's to write your music down. It's to notate musical concepts and then to convey it to other musicians. So that's the two
Right.
purposes. That are the two practical, realistic purposes of musical theory. When it comes to the making of music, the composition, and what is and what isn't right in music. If it sounds good, it sounds good at the end of the day. Um,
Exactly.
those two things, people take musical theory and they cross that line in the sand, and they use it to as a determinant of making the music, composing it, and what is and what isn't good. And I'm like, musical theory has no bearing on that, because that's not how music works. Music is, it's something that you create. It's an art. It's abstraction. There is no set absolute empirical formula, and there's a hang up there, because too many great musicians get so hung up on they box themselves into that dogma of theory elitism, that they're never able to break out from it
Yeah.
and actually create something singular, different, and do anything beyond just replicating what other people have written. And that plays
Right.
into what you were talking about earlier. For guys like us,
Also,
we pick a chord, we pick a note, one note, one melody, one chord, and we just go from there. And we just know naturally, our ears know innately what sounds match where we started from.
right.
And for me, with the piano, even though I did learn a little bit of basic musical theory to kind of get an understanding of where it was at for most other people in terms of notation and scales and stuff, I also learned hand in hand with that for us by ear innately, we pick up on the relative sounds. Like I was saying, and that's how I learned guitar purely by ear. I don't know any like theoretical premise for guitar. I barely know tablature. Like I used some tabs, to help me learn other people's songs. But when I wrote my own songs, it was all by ear.
Mm.
I was all just messing around
Right.
on the fretboard, trying different positions, trying different combinations. And once you find
Right.
one you like, it's like there's a connection. It's like that mystical connection of the ear musician between your body and your mind and the ears. You just know, your hand knows where to go to get the relative sound that you're looking for from that first note that you played. You just,
Right.
like, the distance. Like, you got the whole, like with the basic scales, the simplified scale relative
Mhm.
frequencies, you have like whole, half, half, whole, half, whole, on like major scales, minor scales,
Right.
whatever. And that's not exactly it. I was just giving a random example, but you have whole steps, half steps, whole steps, and we just know that innately. We just know, is it going to be a whole step that we want, a half step, what that is when we translate it. It's just
Right.
interesting. There's a difference between musicians and musical artists. There's a difference between one who plays the drums
Mhm.
and a drummer. And that's where I kind of
Yeah.
differentiate myself, because I create drumming, I write drumming, I compose drumming, I understand
Right.
it naturally. I don't, obviously you start out being influenced and learning by practicing what other people have written. And
Yeah.
Rush was the first big jump that I took, like hiked my learning curve, because it's freaking Rush and Neil Peart. And
Right.
then, to credit you, if I had never met you, I would have never hit that secondary curve, that second jump, which was when you introduced me to Animals as Leaders
Ooh,
and Matt Garska.
cool.
That
You're touching on a good topic. Yeah.
that right there, I had plateaued before I
Wow.
met you. I had plateaued.
You're welcome.
I could play Rush all day. I could play anything
You're
other.
welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Other than the shit that you introduced me to, the
Bow to me. Bow to
the
me, little boy.
the top of the mountain of musicianship.
Yeah.
Animals, Matt Garska, Tosin Abasi, guys like that. When I heard shit like, my ear hadn't even been trained to hear the complex time signatures and grooves. So not only did
Yeah.
that open me up to a new jump in drumming progression, because I'm like, I got to learn this. And I started,
Yeah.
that made me a better drummer, but it also made me a better musician in general, because
Mm-hmm.
my ear was even further opened up to more complex grooves,
Yeah.
time signatures, styles of writing, sounds, rhythm modulation was something I didn't know much about until listening to Animals. And I'm like, this is the fucking greatest thing since sliced
Right.
bread. Rhythm modulation is so sexy, dude. And Matt Garska right now, he's my biggest influence right now as it stands. And he's
Mhm.
on the world stage. He's the best out there. He's the best doing it. He's the best drummer out there on the world
Oh, yeah.
stage today. So
I agree with you on that one. I think to me, even he's succeeded Thomas Hockey, if that's how you say his name. Like, I love Meshuggah, and like that, that guy is an amazing drummer. But I think I think he's up there. I think he's the top one. He's the top dog right now.
he's the guy right now.
Yeah.
He's the peak.
And he's
He's
going to
at
be
the
there a
top of
while.
the mountain. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I can listen to them a lot, and I do. I do listen to them a lot, and I try to play them a lot. I said try. I've been playing 25 years, and I struggle. Um, but sometimes I do have to like step away from their music, because there's so much going on. Like, it overstimulates me. Like, it almost seems like I injected coffee straight in my veins when I'm listening to their stuff and trying to learn it. And I get that way with Meshuggah too. Because I'm like, I don't want to like step away from my guitar. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go learn something easy, like The Police or something.
Yeah, it's
But you
very
touched on a topic, you know, jamming with other people, meeting other musicians is the best thing you'll ever do. And just because you're in a band, you should never stop jamming with other musicians. On your time away from touring or writing, to get to jam with somebody that's a whole different other style would be like the best thing ever. Because I remember we're gonna be talking about this band in our bracket. Yeah. I was very, very like thrash metal all the way through like high school. I loved like Testament, Pantera, and we were starting to get into bands that were starting to kind of break, like Chimera, In Flames, Killswitch Engage. Love those bands still, but I started listening to songwriting after I started songwriting myself, and I started appreciating instead of the single notes, the thrash guitar style. I started going back to things like Smashing Pumpkins, and I think that Billy is a genius when it comes to um, the cadence, the melody, and just how he plays guitar. Like the album Ava or Ava Adore. There's a lot of songs are slept on in that album, and there's a lot of strumming. It brought me back to like strumming the guitar and playing like full chords and stuff. And I started diving into their music a lot. And there were like a few years right there, like around 2005, 2008, probably, where I started writing more songwriter type style songs. And I started my world started broadening and started listening to like R&B, hip hop and songs that maybe didn't have guitar, and I'm like, where would a guitar come in there? And I started playing the guitar, and I started learning like these R&B and blues chords and jazz chords. I ended up picking up a jazz chord book that would teach you. It was like that thick. It was of jazz chords. So I started like playing those and learning them. And another thing I was wanting to say is that, I think these musicians that can't write their own stuff, they don't do stuff like this. They're just so anal about it being theory, and they also are narrow-minded, only listen to like maybe one or two different genres of music. When you open and broaden your horizons and you start playing other chords that don't even like, maybe it's not even like what you listen to, you start appreciating it more. And you could take any chord at all and find a brother or sister chord to it that sounds good, and you can apply that to any song. You just have to find the right rhythm. All right,
Yeah.
if it doesn't sound good strumming it this way, maybe start plucking it this way, leave out at this note and that note to make it fit. It's just people don't understand that because they don't try, and they're stupid.
Yeah, the average person is pretty close-minded on music just because they, for musicians, especially guys like us who play by ear, there's nothing better than branching out and exposing yourself to any and every style of music you can. Widen your palette. You just become a better musician. You just get a better ear overall. Like with classical music,
Mhm.
um,
Oh yeah.
like for me, classical music is something I dove into for a long time. And I was listening to entire 30, 40-minute piano sonatas, string quartets, just straight up symphonies. And that probably expanded my mind musically
Right.
more than anything. That like classical music and animals, specifically to like drumming,
Yeah.
those two things probably like kindled a new flame of just expanding my musical mind more than anything. People don't understand how valuable, how amazing the classical masters were. And let's be real, the casual listener, they listen passively. They passively listen. Music
Right.
is for background noise for most people. So it has to be something, 4/4 marching cadence, a very simple melody, and cliche lyrics that you don't have to think about. You just hear them and you're like, yeah, I can relate to that. But I think even just the average person, the casual listener, anyone and everyone, especially musicians, listen to anything and everything you can. Open your mind musically. Listen to everything. It's very important. It will
Yeah.
expand your palate, and it will allow, and it benefits the art too. When people
Mhm.
open their ears and minds to everything that's out there, you
Yeah.
just naturally, your music IQ just increases, and you're able to differentiate, okay, who really deserves the audience versus who is just some capitalist industry plant, that is bringing the bar down for music and keeping people locked in. And like you mentioned with like chords, this is kind of a very specific side note. People underestimate the
Yeah.
power of just learning a chord, playing a couple of notes together at the same time, and allowing your mind to think of all the possible sounds, melodies, progressions you can get out of that one chord.
Right.
But there's a downside to that. Don't rely on chords so much to where your melody or your riff is literally just chords, like triad chords played, like a different chord pattern played on every freaking beat. That's your riff, that's your melody. I think that's one of the
Right.
biggest issues with like pop music, mainstream music nowadays, is like the melody and the riff is just a chord progression. It's just a simple triad chord progression. Like create a soundscape with chords. Don't use the chords as your riff or your melody. That's mediocre shit, and it just ends up bringing the bar down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But
I
that's just
agree.
a
I
very
concur.
specific.
Yeah. We're right there at an hour, but I wanted to touch on like maybe one more topic real quick, and then we'll do
Yeet.
one little like music headline news, and then the bracket.
Pow pow.
Um, I was thinking like, what could I ask? And I wanted to say something about our two piece, our band, but I'm gonna ask you, uh, what are you trying to accomplish with your music in general? But mainly ours. What is your goal with our music? Because we can't sit here and like complain about the music industry being complete ass, because it is. I'll make it real quick that you know releasing our music in like 2018. I think we had maybe another release or two, 2019, 2020. Um, Things have changed. I've been around the game since the early 2000s. Early 2000s was kind of like the last wind of the, hey, you create a fan base by playing live shows. You go to a studio, record a demo, you send it. You literally send a package with a fucking CD
Yeah.
to record labels and just hope for a phone call back. When we were on our last wind with that little band, we went to a Godsmack concert in Huntington, West Virginia, handed a demo to one of our buddies' dads who was a cop. Yeah, you take that back. Him and looked like a stripper. There was a lot of strippers hanging around on that concert venue that night and doing stripperish shit. They took it to the backstage. He probably just banged her and threw the thing away. But we were supposed to, got word from him that he gave the demo to one of the guys from Godsmack. Me and a buddy worked a Def Leppard concert because my best friend Chris, who was in the band, he was our bassist. He was working at a movie theater, and the guy that ran the movie theater ran the shows, and at the big Civic Center for like the big main concerts. And he's like, hey, if you and a buddy want to work that and make $100, you just let me know. I'll get you guys some backstage passes, and you can work for the day and make $100. And we did that. I handed one of the demos to Phil Collins, the guitarist for Def Leppard. And he's like, oh, thanks a lot, mate. He probably just
Phil
took it.
Collins.
His name's Phil Collins, yeah. The lead guitarist of Def Leppard. The second best Phil Collins.
Yeah.
No one tops the Phil Collins.
No, the real Phil Collins.
He was a huge influence.
The real Carlos Santana.
But
I guess every British musician.
But here we are in this era. This era, you have to find ways to do campaigns for your music on social media, and you pay $20 to thousands of dollars, and it's supposed to hit this many people, and you might sit there for 5 days after you pay that money and you watch the views go up, but you gained maybe 1 to 10 followers, maybe one person comments and it's a fire emoji, and you look at that person's profile and it's a fucking bot, and you just like, they just took my money again. It's just a waste of money. Other things they tell you should do, you go on like submithub.com, things like that, and you listen to other people's music for 10 seconds and hit if you like it or not, so your music can get listened to. And it's just all this back and forth wishy-washy stuff, and it's pathetic. And I think I talked to 2 different like peon record companies. I was super excited that they called me for our little 2-piece, but they're like, the way they do it now these days, we want to run a campaign for you for 6 months. We want you guys to pay us $2,500 or something like that, and we'll run a campaign for you. What we're going to do is we're going to release daily and weekly. We're going to release things on your social media platform. We want your email and passwords to it. We want to run it for you guys, and we're going to build you a story. I'm like, what do you build us a story? This isn't
Hit the gold buzzer.
Idol. I don't have a yeah. This isn't a sad sap story. My fucking brother isn't in a wheelchair, and it isn't because of he's in a wheelchair, so I can't make my music, and I need somebody to hear me sing this song that I sang when I was a 3-year-old on a piano. You know, American
My
Idol has
mom
ruined the music.
died of ligama before I was born.
Yeah. What does it have to do with you singing this song? It has nothing to do. I just want. Here's my little violin, my little cello, and you know
It's
that's
emotional manipulation. It's trying to get an audience through manipulating them emotionally, which is a
yeah.
I mean, that's always more or less been a media tactic, but it's if we know
It's not
anything about like corporate America and like the state of modern capitalism is like manipulation and exploitation are like peak at an all-time high. It's crazy now, you know.
you know, it saddens me that so many people eat it up. I can sift through it immediately, and even when I was a teenager, I was like that. I was that little douchebag in the class. I remember we had a teacher that was like
You're still a douchebag.
talking about American Idol. Yeah, yeah, I was born that way. And she's like, "Don't you like that?" I'm like, "No, these people are fake, and they are karaoke singers. They're getting famous off of singing other people's music. That's none of my favorite bands have ever done that, and they never will because that's not how you do it. You go and you go through the shit that we've gone through. You hone your instrument. You study it. You do well with it. You meet a bunch of psychos that are like-minded. You write a bunch of music. You fist fight each other. You hate one another. Then you become brothers or sisters, and then you start playing live shows, and that's how you do it. If it's not done that way, I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, and that's an important thing you mentioned as far as the, you know, they're not they're not making music. They themselves are somewhat being used as an instrument almost. It's and this touches on
Yeah,
like industry plants, like industry plants, and
there
a
are.
lot of them came from American Idol and shows like that because it's like they're talented, like they have talent, they have ability, you know, they can sing, whatever,
Dance.
but right, but they're not artists. They don't make music. What
Mm-hmm.
they do is they get famous because they have skill or they're talented musically. And then, you know, if they're popular enough, the industry will take them and they'll just have producers and songwriters write stuff for them and they'll just be the face of it and they'll just be the voice of it and they'll just sing it or they'll dance and perform it.
Yeah,
You know, they're performers. They're not musical artists, and there's nothing wrong with being a performer, but they've kind of overshadowed and diluted the industry and the field of music to where real authentic musical artists are getting trampled on and ignored and they're not getting the
yeah,
attention they deserve,
yeah.
you
People
know.
still claim that they're geniuses. Taylor Swift, Rihanna, Beyonce, musical geniuses, because they're fuckable. They walk in to a studio. You know,
We might
it's
have to
that's
edit that one out.
yeah. No, we're keeping that right in. You know, I too would be just a Greek god built like one if my job was to go inside and sit in a studio and listen to beats and be like, yeah, that one resonates with me. Throw some lyrics to that. I'll be back and I'll find the melody. They probably don't even do that themselves, but their job is to exist and go to their gym that's inside their home that they don't deserve. And they go to a studio and they're handed songs that are catchy, full of hooks, probably have nothing to do with their lives, probably irrelevant. That's they're actors. They're singing actors basically. And then they go on tour. Now that is a job to go on tour as much as they do, to fly around and never be around family. And they're probably like, you know, told what to do. Like, we own you. Your name is nothing. We own you. You have to do this. You need
Right.
to let me know if you need to take a shit.
And I
And
feel
you need
like
to
that's always been the dark reality of
oh
the
yeah.
music industry and record labels and you know and look, don't get me wrong, man. I mean, some of these artists, if you want to call them that, I mean, like a Taylor Swift and Rihanna. I mean, look, they're talented and they do write their own songs to a certain extent that we know of. I mean, at first, I mean, granted, they've probably been singing and performing ghostwriters' songs, as many of people who enter the music industry do. And I mean, like I said, then again, there's nothing wrong with performing someone writing a song and they want their favorite performer or they want this person to be the voice of their song that they wrote. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's just certain things, and I try not to name drop because this isn't about like starting beef. And I mean, we don't know people personally and the lives that they live, but it's people like Drake, and I know he's gotten a lot of flack, but it's like you started out in the celebrity lifestyle. You started out doing that. You were looking for a way to become more famous. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to be artistic if you're already doing something else, like already famous. You're not allowed to be a musician. You're not allowed to be artistic. I'm not saying that, but I think we know well enough now that it's just not as authentic as they put it out to be. And
so he being who he is and the races that he is, we're all fans of hip hop. Most of us are. I'm a fan of hip hop. I could listen to NWA. I love it. Listen to Public Enemy. But am I going to go out there and start making music like that and basically keep the energy and the tone and the verbiage that sounds like I grew up in those elements? Absolutely not. And everybody knows what elements that he grew up in. So it's not genuine. So everybody, people still bought it though. When he first was going, before Kendrick tore him a new asshole, people were still buying it up. Yeah. And there were a couple songs that I liked, she used to call me on my cell phone. Everybody likes that song, man.
I mean, yeah, a good song is a good song no matter who makes it. Like, yeah, okay, it's corporate, it's corporate plant shit, but it's still good. It sounds good. It just sounds good.
Yeah, some of it you can't deny.
Yeah.
I love Kendrick, though. I love his music. Love that. You can take his vocals out of it, Kendrick's music. Whoever's making it, but I've heard some of it's Dre. I mean, you can hear it. It's really, really good. And I can't stand hip hop that's kind of like just straight the same stuff over and over.
And that's another thing.
This stuff actually changes.
You touched on that about the authenticism, and because I love hip hop, and I mean really my brother, he kind of pushed me just as you pushed me into like the more prog metal sides of things and learning more complex deep music as far as like instrumentation and stuff. My brother, he became a hip hop head at some point, and he kind of pushed me into like delving deeper into hip hop. And I became a fan of it. I love it. And one of the things I love most about it is the artistic concept. It's you're taking rhythm and music and you're combining poeticism and storytelling.
Right.
And I dabble in hip hop. I dabble in any style of music because I'm just a musician. I think every musician should dabble in every style of music. And so I've written hip hop songs, and me and him are going to release a hip hop, EP before long,
Woo.
Woo. But, I love the music. And my girlfriend, she's Black, African American, whatever way I need to say it for the stream. I mean, she also say what?
What did she say to call it?
I mean,
my black wife says black.
I'm white. She's Black. I mean, it's just the nomenclature. It just is what it is. I mean,
don't want to rustle any feathers. It's got to be called that. It's like, well, my black wife says it's black. So
But she, you know, she with the combination of him and her, like she introducing me to like a lot of old school R&B and stuff because she's an old soul, which is another reason why I love her so much. She's not, you know, one of the Gen Z, like a cliche Gen Z toxic, you
Mhm.
know, youngster. She's an old soul. She appreciates the timeless classics. She introduced me to a lot of R&B stuff, and I dove into Stevie Wonder and his discography. He's one of the greatest
Yeah,
musicians
genius.
to ever do it. And he's become a big
Right.
inspiration for me. And I guess the point I'm getting at is that the art, the art is not about like where you came from or what you look like. It's about the art. It's about the essence of it. Like obviously I'm going to credit African American culture for you know that's their thing. They came up with that. But I think the beauty in it is what music is all about is bringing people together
Yep.
where you know obviously and sharing that artistic concept because me honestly I just find a passionate voice in hip hop because I've always been a good writer like just you know obsessed with like writing always been like really best writer in my class in school always you know and I'm not trying to brag just to make a point like poetry you know is a big part of how I express myself and I'm a drummer very rhythmically you know in tune so it's like the combination of rhythm and poetry just passionately speaks to my heart and that's how a big way I find ease and passion in expressing myself that way. But the point I was coming to is I'm not pretending to be something that I'm not. Like I'm not doing it to ride trends and you know rap about. I don't rap about you know uh, uh, money and sex
Yeah.
and drugs and like I lived in the streets and like I went through that particular struggle. I went through my own struggle of a different kind that I you know talk about, but I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I don't pretend to be a part of something that I'm not. I just use the artistic medium as an expression of my stories, myself, the way I feel musically. But I'm not pretending to be part of the
Yep.
trendiness, you know, what and I'll close on that topic with this is that one of the biggest issues with music nowadays is imposter syndrome. And 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 that becomes an issue because once corporate capitalism gets a hold of music and people the general public start to see the success you can get if you become famous as a musician the
Mhm.
success you can get rich and famous well
Right.
obviously people who aren't so lucky they seek that out as a means to, you know, make it out the hood or get rich and famous. Music has become a get rich quick scheme. It's no longer the mainstream is no longer about the art of music. It's about getting rich and famous.
Right.
And obviously the super imposed like the implications of that cultural perception of music it's pretty obvious that it's
Yeah.
going to destroy the perception, the public perception and standard of what music is supposed to be, which is how we got mumble rap, hype rappers, you know, uh, Imagine Dragons, stuff like that. It's like, and I mean, I love to rag on Imagine Dragons. I mean, they're technically doing their own thing. I mean,
What happened
I
to that
would,
name dropping?
I guess it's
Uh,
just like, I guess I'm just trying to find like the most mainstream names I can find. And I mean, it just
Swine.
I'm not gonna name drop anymore because like I said, it's we're not trying to make it about me versus you or beef. It's about us versus the industry. It's about us real musical artists
Yeah.
versus aspiring struggling musicians versus a industry that stomps on the artists that belong in it and brings down the standard of the art. You know, we've lost the meaning of it. It's all about getting rich and famous. So it's all about it. And I don't and I guess
Cool.
to answer your question you asked earlier, and I'll finish up with this as far as what are my goals? My goals as a passionate musician, a passionate musical artist, is to create music and share it. I want to share my music with the world. I just want to be heard. You know what I mean? I don't need to be rich. I don't really want to be famous. Now, granted, would I like to make a living off of what I do? Would I like to live comfortably, pay the
Yeah.
bills by doing what I love to do? Who wouldn't? Like I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't want to do that. That would be great if we could catch a break like that. But at the
Right.
end of the day, my goal is to not be a millionaire and be the most famous. And there's an artist, one of my friends from high school. He's a fashion designer. His name's Crevin, and his channel on Instagram is Crev for
Yeah.
Cuba. And I'm going to throw that out there. And we have not talked in
Cool.
forever, dude. We have not, but I'm only mentioning him because I came across something that he mentioned in one of his posts. He said, I don't want to be the richest artist. I want to be the most influential. And that
Yeah.
hit home. That hit home with me.
Absolutely to that, man.
I'm like, you get it. He gets it. This guy gets it. Like, I don't want to be the richest. I don't want to. I want to inspire. I want to be inspiring. I want people to share and feel my music. I want to share it. You know what I mean? I want to inspire people. I want to be heard. That's what it's all about. You know?
Yeah. At this point, here I am, 38, and have released probably about 30 or 40 songs, and like I told you, the running the ad campaigns and stuff just to be discovered only by bots. That's and so many songs are out there, and you're told not to put it on your Facebook, things like that, because Facebook for me is just for like family, friends,
Yeah. I
a
mean,
lot of people that I don't care or give a shit about it anymore. And it's just like, I don't want to post that and be like, hey, listen to this. And they're just like, oh, you haven't given up your dream yet? It's like, man, I don't need your opinion. Guy that still changes tires for a fucking living. So,
and I'll interject this to the musicians out there: move in silence. Um, Obviously, part of becoming better at what you do is gaining perspective from others and feedback. You can't get better without feedback. You can't really see how you're being perceived without feedback. Get that from authentic people, authentic musicians, authentic people, and run with it. And move in silence. Like, don't seek affirmation, because it's too easy for people to discourage you when they may not even know what the fuck they're talking about. So move in silence, and when you're ready to
yeah,
really, and don't overthink it, and throw perfectionism out the window, because perfectionism will be the biggest roadblock, especially for aspiring musicians that don't have $100,000 studio to work with, because a bad mix doesn't ruin a good song. A good mix can't fix a bad song. So it's about the music. Don't be a perfectionist. Put it out there. When you're ready to put it out there, put it out there, and just keep doing it. But anyway, I just wanted to interject that.
you should get that one tattooed over top of the one on your gooch.
Just put it out there.
Yeah. Well, let's end the
music.
portion where we're chatting about that. Let's do like the music news real quick, and let's do the bracket. We only have 38 minutes before the recording is done.
And I just want to mention too that as far as what we were talking about, the early days of us trying to put our music out there, times have really changed, and we didn't really know what we were doing and how to go about it. We didn't know how to mix and master. We didn't know how to release it. And I'll say this, that's very encouraging for me, and I feel should be encouraging for all the aspiring artists out there, is, it's easier than ever. It's more accessible than ever. The opportunity, because of the internet, streaming services, and platforms, there's more opportunity than ever for aspiring musicians to be heard. It's easier than ever, but that's a double-edged sword. It's also easier than ever for people who don't belong there, talentless hacks, to abuse it for the get-rich-quick scheme, take the attention off the real artists, and then dilute it, the whole premise. And also corporations, they take over the streaming platforms and they put their mainstream artists on there and just oversaturate it to where the more obscure aspiring ones aren't heard. But don't let that discourage you. Like, still use it. Still use it. Go out and perform live if you can, if that's your thing. Kind of get people to look up your stuff and just go from there.
Right.
It's easier than ever. It's easier than ever to make it, for both the ones who are talented and the ones who are talentless. So that's that double-edged sword. So
That's a good segue.
It's helped and hurt the art in summation. Take advantage of it, though.
I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah. We're gonna do some. We're gonna do some fun little activities, guys. Some fun activities.
Positive note, not that Helmet has canceled their 2024 tour. So, Helmet is a band that people are so slept on. If there wasn't no Helmet, I wouldn't be doing what I do. You would probably hear a lot of influence if you listen to the guitarist. I think that, I hear a lot of this guy right here, Page, the singer, guitarist out of the band. He's been more influential than a lot of people know. This dude has, I believe, influenced bands like Deftones. I think a little bit of 311, Tim Mahoney. I think his guitar playing is, even though I think they kind of like came around the same time. I hear a lot of that. They use a lot of the sus chords, the bar chords. This guy brought in the
sus chords.
Yeah.
The brain rot got to me when
Oh,
you said
God.
that. The first thing I thought of wasn't suspended. The first thing I thought of was just sus, just a brain rot. This is fucking Zoomers.
This guy is amazing, man. He's one of the first drop C tuning dudes. This very, very heavy 6-string guitar guy.
Helmets save lives.
Yeah, if you don't
Without
know
helmets,
who
brain
Helmet
damage
is,
would be more prevalent. You should wear it.
This is why I don't go on Loudwire, man. All these pop-ups. But it's sad, man. Look at that. That's not that many gigs. And they basically released a statement, and you can read that if you want to, but they were very straightforward with it and be like, hey, we didn't sell enough tickets. In a band that's been around since the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s, doing, I want to say that Helmet's one of those like skater rock alternative metal type bands.
Right.
They were probably one of the first ones. Like, it's hard to put a genre on them, but they're awesome. I don't know, man. The fact that they couldn't sell enough tickets, and then if you look at these venues and like the places, like these aren't some of these cities and states. So, this isn't very big for a band that's been around that many years. They can't sell those tickets. That's pretty pathetic, and it's not really pathetic on their part. It's just that, that sucks.
Yeah, we're gonna do one of our venues is going to be Joseph's parents' backyard in Montana.
Nothing wrong with that. I think house parties are awesome. We played it. I loved it.
And what's so sad about it is music is timeless. And I think one of the biggest issues we have culturally today, especially in Western culture, is this obsession with new, now, and anything like nowadays. It's like an internet culture definitely has not helped. Nowadays, it's like anything past a year ago is ancient. Like, right. 5 years ago, dude, that's what, bro. 5 years ago, freaking 2019 called. They want their song back. It's like,
don't get me started on that.
What?
Don't get me started on that. I made a long TikTok video about that because growing up from '86 on to 2010, you didn't really have like YouTube giving you endless opportunities to listen to anything you wanted. Everybody at my school, you would see people walking around with the Doors t-shirts on, Led Zeppelin shirts, all the way up to Linkin Park. We would all listen to, we would legit know the song structures of bands that came out in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. These kids these days don't listen to anything that's not been out in the last few years, and it fucking blows my mind that I don't get it. Like, I think people have rot brain from social media, even though we're making a podcast. But I think we're making a podcast for true musicians and like old heads that see eye to eye with this, because people's attention spans are like,
it's
can't believe
for
that people
everybody, because it's like, it's the internet and technology. It's not a bad thing. It's you take the good with the bad. Technology and the internet can be beautiful, and that's one of the beautiful things you mentioned about the internet is it's supposed to make all of the information in the world accessible to everyone,
Yeah, but
including
people just want
including right, including discovering timeless music. And but as you said, it's like social media culture and the average attention span and the idea of like obsession with trendiness and popular opinion, it keeps people nowadays from taking advantage of that, opening their minds, expanding their palettes. Music is timeless, and it's sad to see that because of that culture, that now culture that we have. And this is simply what it
right.
is. This is the reason Helmet wasn't able to keep their tour going, because people are unwilling to be open-minded, expand their palettes, and appreciate the timelessness of music. It's just what it is, and it's sad.
Yeah, I think it's going to get worse too. I don't really foresee it getting any better, unfortunately.
Well,
But
hopefully musicians like us can help push back, and the idea is to help the art,
yeah,
help
well,
inspire,
you can only keep creating good music that's going to fall on robots' ears. But I think what we're doing right here, right now, creating a podcast, this isn't just for our music. This is for Helmet. This is for some of the bands that are on here on this rock band bracket.
Right.
For God's sakes, I mean, I think that some of them are struggling if they didn't sell albums in the 80s, 90s, whatever, because they're they're not going to get a push from all these young punks that are supposed to do their job to advertise their tour dates, for instance. Because I love Helmet. If I would have seen that they were on tour, I would have made it. I would have bought tickets to go see them. But God, I'll tell you, like right there on the bottom right, King's X. That is one of the most underrated bands that you'll ever see. Like those guys deserve the world. They're in the top 3 or 4 of my favorite rock bands, and they're just a 3-piece and just very straightforward, good hard rock. And they have been struggling. They played the '94 Woodstock, and I watched a interview with Ty Tabor, whatever, the guitarist,
Right.
and a really good singer in the band. He was talking about, yeah, man, that was supposed to be our push. Who plays '94 Woodstock or any of those Woodstocks out of those 2, the '94, '99, and don't explode? They're one of them. That's crazy to me. But anyway, let's get onto the bracket. Take a look at that. And some of that first top left one is it's an immediate punch to the gut for me. Like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, we got ourselves a little bracket challenge here. We've got eight of my favorite bands and 8 of Daniel's favorite bands, and we're gonna pit them against each other. We haven't run through this yet. We're gonna run through this right now and scream at each other about which bands are better.
Let's start from the top left, man.
And any Zoomers watching this, look these bands up, man. If you've never heard these bands, and if anybody happens to see this freaking stream recording, delve into these bands,
right?
Because there's just beauty and gold to be found. Where like Daniel said, we're doing this for the art. It's not just about us. We're doing it for the love of the art. But
pimping these bands out. We got 27 minutes, man. We gotta go through this.
Oh, we good, man. We good. All right, so where are we starting first? On your side?
Start right there in the top left.
Alice in Chains and the Police. For a hard first round on this one.
I absolutely love both bands, but for me though, like we're going by like personal opinions too. By the way, let's not go by like record sales and all that stuff.
Influence and stuff like that.
Influences all day, every day. Alice in Chains. Although I am influenced quite a bit by the Police, quite a bit. Stuart Copeland, completely amazing drummer. People don't understand. Really good composer of music. Everything he's touched is great. Sting, unbelievable.
One of my biggest.
Andy Summers is a really good guitarist. Yeah.
Sting,
Yeah,
Sting,
if you're
and
actually good,
Stuart Copeland, of course, for drumming, and Sting actually
yeah.
for vocalization and songwriting. Sting is a big influence too.
But between us two, wouldn't you agree that it's Alice in Chains gonna have to be with that?
Um,
Ooh.
I guess this is hard because it's one of those things where it's like, which one would I rather listen to more often is what I'm trying to gauge it by. Simply put,
Oh, that's still Alice
um,
in Chains for me.
well, the difficulty is I've heard Police way more than Alice in Chains, so they're somewhat more worn out for me. So it's hard to. There's a lot of
Mm,
bias there. Uh, once again, this is not supposed to be for anybody watching. This is not supposed to be like an objective. Oh, these are the best bands ever. This band is better than this band. This is just like
mm.
we're just putting our favorites, some of our favorites, up against the other, and just riffing who's going to win this moment. So whichever ones we choose does not necessarily mean that they're objectively better in any sense or that they're bigger and greater. This isn't
Right.
about influence and, like he said, record sales. So still makes it hard though. I think since a lot of the Police songs kind of run together for me sometimes, I'll take it. Yeah, we'll go with Alice in Chains. I think you get a little more variety and experimentation with Alice in
Right.
Chains on sound. So
I wonder in this next one if we'll bump heads on that one because Faith No More is just unreal, awesome to me. I obviously love Pearl Jam, spitting, but I have to admit, let's compare everybody on their instruments. Let's just go straight for Eddie Vedder versus Mike Patton. It's Mike Patton all day, every day. With that, he's extremely, extremely talented singer and charismatic and everything. Stage presence. Eddie, he's just got that like monotone voice. Those first few albums for me were amazing because of the music, and then all of a sudden it started tapering off. And for me, it's because they drop kicked Dave Abbruzzese or whatever. They had an amazing drummer, man.
He was the best one they had, and he
Matt
was
Cameron's good, but damn, dude.
Yeah, Matt Cameron he's good, but truthfully I think he's one of the more overrated drummers in rock history. But yeah, the guy that Pearl Jam had for the 10 album, like that drummer is one of the biggest reasons that 10 ended up being what it was. Because he
was on 10 and Versus and Vitology, I believe, and then Pearl Jam being Pearl Jam, man, they kicked him out because he was doing rock star stuff. I think they didn't like him being on Drumming World magazine and stuff like that, drawing more attention. I think the whole band, except for probably him, probably got a little bit overwhelmed. But at the same time, I just don't understand that whole process. You're doing stuff to get famous, and now you're overwhelmed. Why don't you just fall back for a while? And
the whole one of the big sentiments with grunge was about respecting the underground and the obscure, and not letting media capitalism take over. And I understand that, but the drummer that they had from the get-go, he brought something different to the table. He had a more of a funk style than your typical grunge drummer did. The one thing that made Pearl Jam stand out more than anybody in the grunge scene was their drummer. The funk feel that he brought to their music. That's like,
I would disagree with that. Just not just the drummer, man. Like there's a lot of talent in Jeff Ament in that bass playing, and then Stone and what's his name? That's pathetic that I don't know his name. Dude from Mad Season and everything. Mike McCready. There's a lot of like Jimi Hendrix influence in that, and like old school blues rock, which you hear in Jerry Cantrell playing too. But for me though, just Pearl Jam is great I really liked them. But Faith No More, just not only because of Mike Patton's talent, his range, his endless range, but because every album that they've ever released with Mike Patton, which is quite a few of them, every song is different. It sounds completely different. You can almost not, you know how you can hear a song on the radio and you're going to hear that guitar tone or maybe the singer and be like, hey, that's Van Halen or that's Tool. Not with them, ever. It's like a whole other person took over the instrument and they did really well with it. So that for that reason, it's Faith No More for me. That's gonna be my choice easily.
Well, I haven't delved into Faith No More as much as you have. Sadly, I don't have as much of a reference to go off of. Because I was going to go with Pearl Jam just because of 10 is one of the greatest rock albums ever made. And I mean, Eddie Vedder, love him or hate him, he's a great singer. And they just have
As
a lot
good
of
as Patton, man.
they just have a lot of good stuff. Yeah, but this is Pearl Jam versus Faith No More, not Eddie Vedder versus Patton.
No, still, like I just described, I wholeheartedly believe Faith No More is way better.
Well, look, just for the sake of being different and keeping it interesting, I'll take your word for it. We'll pick Faith No More.
Yeah. The only thing that maybe Pearl Jam might have over Faith No More would, well, it's not a maybe, it's the fact that they've been together, they stayed together, and they've released more. Now, Faith No More is still together, and they still tour, and they released an album back in like 2013 or 2014 or something like that. They don't release as much as Pearl Jam, but for me, Pearl Jam has fallen off, and
Quality over quantity all day anyway.
They could slam it all day. This one's hard.
This
Jane's
one's going to be
Addiction
really
versus
hard.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Yep. This is hard.
I think I kind of looked at it when I was typing it up, and I had an idea what I was going to say. I think I was going to say Jane's Addiction over Smashing Pumpkins, and I'll say this because without Jane's Addiction, there wouldn't be a lot of bands. Hell, you could say that towards the Rollins Band, Nine Inch Nails, Smashing Pumpkins, a lot of bands that Perry Farrell got on to Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza is a huge reason why all these kick-ass bands out of the 90s got famous. You can even say that over for Pearl Jam and Soundgarden because they did that too. Alice in Chains, they were on Lollapalooza. You know, these bands were kind of
which has lost its meaning nowadays.
What?
I was saying Lollapalooza, it's lost its meaning nowadays. It's not about getting different obscure artists out there. It's about the same typical old fucking, corporate mainstream artists,
Yeah.
It's just a fucking another Coachella, basically.
That's what it reminds me of, yeah.
But this is hard because Smashing Pumpkins they're so singular. They're so singular and their music is so freaking good. Compared to the rock scene that they were from, and they're a big influence too on a lot of people. But
yeah,
I think because Jane's Addiction to me, because they were so impactful, they just rock. They were so experimental. I loved Perry Farrell's like artistic experimentation everywhere he freaking went. He's one of my biggest influences as it pertains to songwriting and vocals and. I'll go with Jane's Addiction because Jane's Addiction's like
I'll let you
top.
This one.
Yeah, they're one of my top 5 favorite bands. Period. So
I agree. This one isn't that hard for me, but I want to say that I am a Van Halen fan. I just I don't throw them on to listen to them as much, but I know that the talent is like unreal. I grew up listening to Van Hagar, but I have grown as I've listened to them more. I love like the Diamond Dave era and everything.
Diamond Dave, 1984.
Yeah. I said, "Oh, who said that, baby? How you feel?"
Man, Eddie Van Halen and Alex, the Van Halen brothers, some of the biggest inspirations, biggest musicians in the history of the game of rock. Alex being a big influence for me. Van
Don't
Halen
sleep
was a
on the
big music.
bassist though.
Yeah, him and Dave, they
I'd
were good.
always
And
heard, and I think I've seen it. The bassist was like the guy doing the high pitched squeals too. Um, shit, what's Van Halen's bassist name? Oh, how do I not know that?
nah, that was
Anyway,
that was Dave, man. That was Dave doing that.
no, he was doing it, but I'd seen it live. He was the one that was doing the backup vocals when there were harmonies, and he's doing the higher pitch vocals.
Ah,
But
I get you. I always wondered who was doing that.
so Tool for me though, I mean, that last album, I gotta slam it, man. Fear Inoculum was such a snooze fest. It's just Danny Carey doing his thing though. Like I gotta give him props for carrying the band. But Tool still from
Danny
start to
carrying the band.
finish.
What you did there?
You like that?
Bad
I
baby,
just came
bad
up with
baby.
it.
Danny Carey,
Tool,
another big
it's all day
influence of
Tool for
mine.
me, man.
Danny Carey is pretty much the Neil Peart of metal. He's the exact same type of drummer Neil Peart was, but in the metal scene. I love it.
By
And
the
I'll
way,
say,
anybody wanting to say anything about the bands on here, we've made a metal bracket and we did a hip hop bracket on our first go around that didn't get recorded. We'll redo that one. But
yeah, we're gonna reproach those.
Tool is going to be considered rock when you see the metal list. Trust us. So
This is a very broad, like this is just
yeah.
rock in general, very broad.
What'd you call me? Did you call me abroad?
But yeah, I think just because of Tool's their talent, even though most of the talent lies with Danny and Maynard, as far as being standout talent, I think that lies with Danny and Maynard. But it's just the music that they wrote, the experimental, unique
Oh, I
music
think
that they wrote.
the four of them are amazing. It's just that last album. They there's usually there's usually quite a bit of bass notes, bass production, the sound quality, and what Justin Chancellor brings to the table. He didn't bring anything to the table for me on that album, and Maynard has lost his voice for
Yeah,
me.
he's
I'm
fried.
sad
He's
to say.
fried his voice. I saw the Atlanta concert for Fear Inoculum. I went to that, fucked my
Yeah.
ears up because the acoustics in State Farm Arena are atrocious, and the audio engineers did not take that into account. They
I've
blasted
been
my ears, dude.
yeah.
I wish we put earplugs in halfway through, like after the intermission, because I was like, oh, I don't want to get up before the intermission because I don't want to miss anything. Number
Right.
one, didn't fucking miss a damn thing. I mean, it was mostly a boring concert for the most part because the album's fairly boring. And number two, I regretted not getting up then and there and getting the earplugs because half of the concert was enough to fuck my ears up. But anyway, yeah, I mean, Maynard, he could not, he
we
just
probably
wasn't
have to,
it. Maynard
we
just
probably
couldn't
need
do
to
it.
go a little faster on this side over here. But I think these are going to
Yeah,
be a
we
little
got
bit
it.
easier. I'm going to immediately say the Eagles over Soundgarden, even though I love Soundgarden and Chris Cornell is my favorite singer.
I'm surprised.
The
I thought I
Eagles
was going
just
to
they
have to
have
fight with
so
you.
much, man. They have so many damn good
Their
hits.
their style is so variable and they're so talented.
Yeah.
Joe Walsh and
Yeah, I honestly don't know who I would listen to more if you gave me the option over those two. I really
damn it.
don't.
What the hell was his
Oh, I
name?
also want to add in real quick to the viewers. The reason why you don't see Rush and Led Zeppelin is because Cameron and I immediately said there's no way that those wouldn't automatically go straight to the
That
championship.
that would be the championship right off. It wouldn't be fair. Rush and Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin are in a different league. It wouldn't be fair. We had to leave them out.
Rush would
It
win
would
for
not.
me.
It
So.
would not be interesting, whatever, because it would be Rush and Led Zeppelin in the final, guaranteed.
So I mean, are you Eagles too, or is it Soundgarden for you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eagles because I love Soundgarden, but I don't think Soundgarden. I think same with the Police. I think a lot of their stuff for me runs together. I don't think they branch out and write enough.
Yeah.
There's not enough variation for their music for me. The Eagles, man, they did everything from country to hard rock to R&B to blues. Dude,
they're about as country
amazing.
as I'll ever like. I cannot stand country.
They are, if we're going to include them in country, which I guess you would have to, they're rock and country, southern rock more or less.
If we do a country bracket, it'll all be you, just like the metal bands are all for me.
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about country to make a whole bracket, but I like good country. I do like good timeless country. I can appreciate country, the good stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Eagles.
This next one is easy, man. I love Seven Dust, and I'm sorry, Lejean and Morgan and everybody else in Seven Dust.
But even though
I love Seven Dust, but Dave Matthews has been a huge part of my life, and
huge inspiration.
I do consider extremely hard to play guitar riffs. Dave Matthews being from South Africa, and the music there not being guitar based, and it's being more so like bongos, drums, and keyboards. He had to learn like basically the keyboards on guitar. There you go. And then when you add Tim Reynolds, Jesus, dude, that dude is a beast on guitar as well.
Yeah, it's and of course
extremely amazing
Carter
band.
Yeah, and of course Carter Buford, another one of my biggest influences. You gotta throw him out there. Carter Buford, everybody. Carter Buford, everybody. Carter Buford.
Everybody sleeps on him when they talk about some of the best drummers in the world. He should be up there with like the top 3 to 5.
I think it's just because casuals just don't truly understand drumming. They think drumming, being better or the best drummer, is all about how fast you can play and how fast you can do the double kick pedal.
Joey Jordison.
There's so much more to drumming than that, and Carter Buford is on that mountain of the more. Dave Matthews Band is just one of the most musically brilliant bands to ever grace our ears, and for some reason, it's a popular opinion among Zoomers and maybe even millennials now to hate Dave Matthews Band.
Well, they did come out like highly supporting Obama, and politics have really ruined a lot of.
Yeah, they got a little activist, but I mean the music is great. They're
Pearl Jam does the same thing. Pearl Jam does the same thing. I don't let that stuff affect me. I'm still gonna blast their music.
I mean, if you don't like good music,
even if they're
just don't like music. That's your problem, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's Stone Temple Pilots for me on that next one, man. I get Nirvana.
I can't take Stone Temple Pilots. Number one, Stone Temple Pilots is to me, they're more of a carbon copy attempt of Nirvana. I think they're
yeah. I mean, they came after Nirvana. I'll give you that because of Dave Grohl.
To me,
Dave needs to be on this list. We should have added Foo Fighters.
Dave Grohl is one of the gods of rock.
He is, and metal.
And Kurt Cobain we got to give him his props for being a revolutionary songwriter and just musical genius. He may not have been the most talented guitarist or singer of all time, but he was musically brilliant, and he changed the game.
Songwriter style, though. Yeah.
And Stone Temple Pilots, I feel like I think Stone Temple Pilots was trying too hard to be grunge. They weren't as authentic as they could have been, but they have great stuff. I love their stuff.
You're sleeping on it, man. There's a ton of talent in the DeLeo brothers, the guitarist and bassist. They're unreal talented, and I will say this, that there's a lot of influence in my guitar playing because of Robert. I think it's Robert. Robert's the guitarist, I believe. Robert DeLeo.
Damn, we got T-minus 7 minutes. We got to argue fast.
No. Yeah, no. Let's choose Nirvana. I'm with you on that one. This is a close call, though. But I'm going to tell you this.
I'm taking Porno.
I'm not.
I got to take Porno for Pyros.
I'm controlling this. It's Kings, man.
The musical brilliance of Perry Farrell's, the experimentation, and the drummer.
Perry's already on the list.
Pornos for Pyros he is amazing, underrated.
Cameron, now you should know better. You know that's the exact same drummer as Jane's Addiction. It's the dude.
I didn't say I did that. That's my point.
It's the same drummer, man.
Perry Farrell and that guy, yeah. Porno and their the art rock, the experimentation of sound.
Let me help you out with this one. Perry and Stephen Perkins would both say King's X is the winner over Porno for Pyros. This isn't Jane's Addiction versus
just
King.
For the sake of time, since I got Nirvana over STP, I'll give you King's X.
Okay, now this
We
one
might have to
is easy.
we might have to do a to be continued championship round, honestly.
Nah, let's just try to zoom through it. What do you think? Alice in Chains over Faith No More?
Alice in Chains.
I
I'm
agree.
taking Alice in Chains.
Sorry, Faith No More guys, man. Faith No More is so good.
They're good, but I
Jane's
got to
over
pick
Tool
Alice
though.
in Chains. I'm taking Jane's
I might have to
Addiction. I
take
love
Tool.
Tool, but oh, you son of a bitch!
No, man. I wish James would put out some more music. They've got the original four back together. I think, well, they did actually, but that's just one song, and we both agree we didn't dig it too much.
Just because
we
of
didn't
the
dig Tool's new album either.
just because of the albums, much more musical variants. Yeah, I'll agree. We'll take Tool. Jane's didn't last
Oh
long
my
enough,
god,
man.
dude! Why didn't I see that we'd have Eagles versus Dave Matthews Band?
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh,
What
this
are
is
we
gonna be
gonna
hilarious.
do? And we got a crunch for time too. It's hilarious. Oh man, I don't know who and why. Well, we're doing our own personal thing. I
I'll
think
take Dave
personally, I would
Matthews.
choose. I was gonna say Dave Matthews, just for my own personal taste. If
I
it had
think
to be between the
for
two, I would choose.
Right, I think for the musicianship alone and the live performances and the improv, like just the brilliant top tier musicianship and the people that they involve, Dave Matthews Band.
This one's a little easier. Nirvana versus King's X.
Um, like I said, I don't know much about King's X, but I didn't. Nirvana would be kind of cliche.
For me, it'd be King's X. But then, like, if we're gonna lump in like Dave Grohl and everything he's done, he needed to be in this list. I would have to choose Nirvana over them.
Yeah, I guess we'll go with Nirvana. Just put Kurt, we'll get Kurt and we got to get Kurt and Dave in the semifinals.
Alice in Chains versus Tool. It's Alice in Chains for me. I prefer them over Tool. There's not much Jerry Cantrell can do wrong, man. I didn't really like his last solo album, Brighton, but just everything he's done with Alice in Chains.
I'll gauge it simply this way: which one can I listen to more often off rip? Alice in Chains. Tool is something you have to kind of sit and actively listen to. Alice in Chains is just more listenable off rip. You know what I mean? Any mood you want. You have to be in the mood to listen to Tool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think Dave Matthews Band over Nirvana as well.
I think the musical variants, the scope of talent, the live performances. I think Dave Matthews. This is a weird fucking championship. Alice in Chains versus
It
Dave
is.
Matthews
We have
Band
2 minutes, dude.
for the rock and roll
It's
crowd. What
hilarious.
the fuck is wrong with us? Hey, you know what? It just
Alice
represents the wide taste, though. Say what?
Alice in Chains has always made it to my top every time they're in these lists.
This is hard, dude. I have to piss. We have 2 minutes left, and this is a tough one.
I'll let you choose. I want to hear what you have to say. Because I always usually choose Alice in Chains, but when up against Dave Matthews Band, I might say Dave Matthews Band, but to like say, hey, this is our rock bracket, that might just piss so many people off, even myself. Like, why is Dave Matthews in a rock band?
I think ignoring it's the fusion. I think ignoring what Dave Matthews Band did for music at his time and kind of brought the idea to the table. Hey, you don't have to have the same music and style every single time. You know, rock or not, music is about variance. Trying new things. Right. There's a million instruments out there. Fucking use them. You know what I mean? There's a million styles and genres out there. Mix them up, fuse it. But just because this is
yeah. 1 minute.
Well, just because this is a rock bracket.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
Alice in Chains had like 14 years they didn't make records because they lost Lane.
And that's the
They
hard
didn't
thing
tour much
about it.
either because of Lane's addiction. All of their addictions, really.
And that's the difficult part about it.
30 seconds. Come on, dude. Who are we gonna choose?
You know what? R.I.P. Lane Staley. Let's just do it, man. Let's take Alice in Chains.
I agree.
Alice in Chains. R.I.P. Lane. So this is what it's come to.
All right, man.
This has been.
That will conclude our first podcast from the First Note. Stay tuned for way more.
Yes, sir. Groove Magoo and Smelly. You heard it first.